In a modern world, the tyranny of distance remains a huge obstacle. From Rottnest and Margaret River to our isolated outback, West Australians depend on the Royal Flying Doctor Service. An icon of Australian life, the ambulance in the air allows our state to continue to grow. Last year, the Flying Doctor clocked up 5.2 million kilometres in WA, made more than 10,000 landings and was in the air for over 15,000 hours, saving lives. Hello, I'm Paula Vos. For more than 70 years, the Royal Flying Doctor Service has provided a vital lifeline for those living in WA's outback. Now, in the 21st century, the Flying Doctor is on the road, pioneering a new service in healthcare. We go on a trek through the rugged Pilbara, visiting outback stations, mining sites, and take a look at the modern-day School of the Air. Our story begins in Marble Bar on race day. The hottest town in Australia, Marble Bar. Now this is the middle of nowhere. No mobile phones, the latest newspaper's 5 days old. Oh, and if you're at the pub, don't expect a glass, it's a can or stubby. Race day, the Marble Bar Cup. Everyone's out for a good time.
And you tell me there's a bit of a scratch on it.
We took it out of the box.
Uh-oh.
A day of fun, laughter and hopefully picking a winner.
And 30 on cruise for a win, thanks.
It's 44.
Thank you.
30 on cruise?
Cruise is 48 to 30. Cruise.
Sunday black. You got to have it on there to win, but
Somebody said that this is bad luck, wearing green to the races.
No, it's good luck.
That is good luck.
Well, I hope so.
So do I.
Let's all have good luck.
Race day here reminds the locals of Marble Bar in the days of glory. The economy thrived with a tin and gold mine, a railway line to the coast, and prospectors living on a dream of striking it rich. Die-hard punters travel hundreds, some even thousands of kilometres to get a taste of the sport of kings outback style.
All the way from Victoria, mate.
Where are you from?
Albany.
Okay, so you come all this way.
Yes.
Is that your first win at Marble Bar?
Yeah, first time I've ever ridden here.
It's our version of Margaret River.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the Northwest Margaret River Marble Bar.
exactly, flush and duddy and everything.
Well, that's always good.
Yeah, it's excellent.
You don't have to go far to hear stories of just how much the locals rely on the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
I believe you were flown to Perth by the Royal Flying Doctor this week.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I was mustering cattle out at Marty Station in the craft.
Yeah?
And had a bit of an accident and landed on my head. So they flew me down there.
And today you're at the races.
Yeah.
So you're all right then?
Oh, no worries.
Down the extreme outside, Breitling, free at the 200 nose. Still sprint shot. Parisian Storm trying hard, but sprint shot is clear from Parisian Storm. Down the outside, Breitling, save it. Sprint shot leading all the way. Sprint shot. Parisian Storm second.
The Royal Flying Doctors are on standby at all bush meets. In fact, they know about most country events. For more than 70 years, the R.F.D.S has been involved in emergency evacuations. Pilots have been known to land on roads and fly in all kinds of weather conditions to save lives. One of its new initiatives, in the Pilbara at least, is caring for the people who live here by providing primary health care. Teaching first aid, how to administer drugs, treat snakebite. Nurses offer a medical service and can talk through the contents of a medical chest, which contain all the drugs of a small pharmacy. Doctors are on call 24/7. Medical instruction is over the phone.
Good afternoon, Newman Medical Centre.
For people in the bush, the project is really meeting a gap in healthcare and health services, and for many of them it may be the only real health professional that they have some contact with, so it's really quite important for them.
The on-the-road team travel thousands of kilometres to make a difference.
We've been out to a lot of stations and a lot of places so far. The feedback from some people has been that they haven't had any first aid instruction in 20 years they've been living out there, and they're quite surprised at how easy it is to be able to sustain life and help somebody in need. with the skills that we're teaching them.
Flight nurse Michelle Boddington knows any one of her students may have to administer crucial treatment for many hours before professional help arrives.
The last 9 years I've been a flight nurse out of Port Hedland in the Pilbara, and I've seen that people out there are lacking some skills. They are often stressed in these situations we go into.
The On the Road project aims to deliver primary health care to as many residents as possible. Workers can go years without visiting a doctor. So having so many people in one place, like the Marble Bar races, is a great opportunity to deliver a health message. This clinic is designed to target blokes. It's called a pit stop. Let's face it, men are the most difficult to get to the doctor, so disguise the doctor's surgery as a racing pit, complete with girls in overalls, and yet all of a sudden you have their attention.
So the whole aim of this project is to encourage men to come into an area where they feel quite comfortable and quite relaxed.
Okay, have you had blood pressure tested recently at all?
Yep, very regularly.
How do you know what it would normally be?
It's usually about 120 over 80.
Oh, okay, good stuff.
Oh, I made my day. Now my blood pressure's just gone up.
Yeah, no, I'll have to take some off for that.
Body parts are related to those of a car. The service checklist needs to be ticked and rated.
Check the old chassis.
If you can't reach the beer, it may be a warning sign.
Put your hand against your knee and put your fingers under your toes and just push down on your knee gently and pull your toes up. You feel that stretch here?
Yep,
yeah,
sure can.
That's a really good one to do. Fantastic.
Even the cops were checked out.
Couple less donuts, eh? Less donuts.
It can be fun, but there's a serious message. Nurses are on the lookout for health problems which may need further investigation.
70 in a month.
You're 70 in a month? Yeah. You're a fit-looking bloke for 70? My goodness me, that's better than the young boys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Peter Miller was one of the first patients evacuated from his home and flown to medical help almost 70 years ago.
It was an absolute thrill of my lifetime. I think I was better by the time I got into Hedland because of the thrill of riding on the plane. I'd never been in a plane before. It was something really unusual for me. But irrespective of that, when I look back on it, the Flying Doctor was something very fine because it would have taken us 2 days to come in by road.
The Royal Flying Doctor is respected in the bush. Members of the team also seem honoured to be part of a legend.
I have to pinch myself every day while I'm employed with the Royal Flying Doctor Service because I certainly consider it an amazing job, an amazing project to be involved in.
Phil Witt is on the road, visiting, helping and educating those in the Pilbara.
Do you copy?
Yeah, this is R.F.D.S on the road. I copy. The uniqueness about this project is the fact that you've got a primary health service which is being delivered on site to so many remote stations, and the folk who live out at these cattle stations and roadhouses and satellite mines, communities, they rarely, if ever, have the opportunity to go to towns and do such things as first aid courses or just become more aware about various cancers.
You can drive this track time and time again and never see a soul. Today we were buzzed by the pesky motorcycle boys.
The Peskies. I think the Peskies originated from some guy yelling out, "Those damn pesky dirt bike riders on my land."
The riders come from around Australia and the world, hooked up by the internet and their love of riding through the Aussie outback. The Royal Flying Doctor gives these bikies reassurance. This 63-year-old from Sweden can't get enough of our outback.
Is this what keeps you so young?
Oh, no, women.
Women?
Yes.
What sort of women keep you this young?
My own.
Your own women?
Yes.
Is that plural women?
No, just one.
Just one?
Yes.
Pretty special one,
And
huh?
the other one on television, like you.
Oh. Thank you.
This year, the group covered more than 2,000 kilometres on their 10-day journey. Organiser Gary Bell vividly remembers the trek that went horribly wrong for one rider.
We were out going across the Canning Stock route and a guy hit an anthill and busted his foot. So we carry sat phones from Telstra and we called up the Flying Doctor and managed to get him evacuated out, yeah.
Anyone going to be watching this, go to Marble Bar, the Cup next year. It's a good place, definitely a good place.
Did you have a win?
Mate, I had a win. You threw 5 heads in a row. And the 2 up. Of course I had a win.
Did you back me?
Oh, I did. Heads all the way, mate. Yeah.
Oh, and you can't go to the Outback races without a punt, Aussie style. Next, when seconds count, Amanda Walsh talks with flight nurse Fran Ma.
Some people call it an intensive care in a phone booth.
Did you know half the number of people with major trauma in WA are carried by the Royal Flying Doctor Service to major hospitals in Perth?
This is the rock that gave the town Marble Bar its name. 8 kilometres from the settlement, the gold prospectors thought they'd found marble.
It's actually jasper, or jasperite, and it's sought after by a lot of electrists who polish it. It looks quite spectacular, especially when you pour water over it.
Okay. Oh, wow, it really makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can see how it comes out. It's really beautiful.
It's quite bright.
It is.
Norm Crane works for the Royal Flying Doctors. On his days off, he's a tour guide showcasing our outback. This one's pretty specky, Norm.
It is specky, yeah. You find these growing along watercourses through the Pilbara and also in the Kimberley. This is a white dragonflower tree. The flower is shaped like a dragon.
Marble Bar has a nursing post, but no doctor. Every Thursday, the Royal Flying Doctor flies in for a clinic. The people who live here know medical help is a plane flight away.
My day was good. And your day?
Yeah, good.
Let me smell. Oh, no, he's right.
No.
He's been drinking water.
Queenie McIver has heart problems. The Royal Flying Doctor has enabled her to stay in Marble Bar and continue nursing injured and orphaned kangaroos. Last year, Queenie and husband Callum McIver had a car crash.
Apparently turned over 2 or 3 times and I got thrown out somewhere.
Unconscious with multiple spinal breaks, broken ribs and crushed vertebrae, the former Scotsman was rushed to Perth.
Dr. Flynn had to insert 2 tubes to inflate his lungs until they got to Perth.
Partners for 30 years, Queenie is grateful. For her, Callum's life was one worth saving.
Oh, without the Royal Flying Doctor, he would have been dead for sure.
Most of the locals here have a story of how they've been helped by the Royal Flying Doctor. Old-timer Jimmy Johnston explained to me the ruins of an old mining settlement. The cookhouse, processing plant, mining life has certainly changed. He's all praise when it comes to the Royal Flying Doctor. So they saved your life?
Yeah, sure.
Airlifted from a mine site several decades ago after a 200-kilogram piece of machinery fell and crushed his legs.
Well, the jaw came down and broke my legs, and I looked down and I could see my boots sticking up the other way, but I was luckily sitting down and I could reach down and pick up the jaw and lift it and sort of turn it, and the young guy come racing down and held it while I got out.
Nurse Fran Ma has been dealing with medical emergencies at the Flying Doctors for 8 years.
People's lives change in an instant and no one recognises that. None of us think it's ever going to happen to us. And I really find very heartbreaking people who've been in accidents where they're permanently damaged, either brain damaged or spinal injuries, particularly when they're awake and talking to you, and you have to, you know and they know that they're never going to walk again.
Dean White needed to be flown to Perth after crashing his dirt bike.
Came off going around a corner and the bike landed on top of me. And in that situation, I did about 6 ribs, broke my collarbone and collapsed my left lung. And then 6 weeks later, I got back on the motorbike for the first time. I was riding down one of the creek systems here, the Fortescue River, and I turned around, came back, and there was a piece of cable suspended between trees, an old fence line, and it took me across the chest. I was on my own. And it did 5 ribs, collapsed my other lung, severed my stomach muscles, and lost 3 meters of intestines.
Again, the Royal Flying Doctor was called.
Exactly the same pilot, same nurse, So there's a certain sense of deja vu about it.
Dean White decided his luck had run out.
Promptly got back and sold the bike and wrote my cheque out to the R.F.D.S. So the urgency and the professionalism which they managed to treat me was, I'll never forget it. It was certainly hugely rewarding. You always think of the worst things in life, but in situations like that, you just appreciate how good those people are.
The plane, as you've seen, is very small inside, so it gets quite crowded. In fact, some people call it an intensive care in a phone booth.
The Royal Flying Doctor evacuate 5,500 patients each year. More than 1,000 are primary flights direct from mine sites, isolated communities or remote cattle stations. R.F.D.S teams are evacuating 2,000 more patients a year than they did a decade ago.
He died in the car on the way.
Lynn Penhaligon will never forget the day she was rushing her husband Les to hospital. He'd suffered a massive heart attack.
Held him up with one hand and drove with the other.
Specialists told the family it was likely Les had brain damage and would require constant care. But Les Penhaligon has made an amazing recovery and is back at work.
It was amazing in what people did, in what the doctors did and in what the flying doctor did to get me down there.
We can have a lot of problems on the way down, and we just manage, really, we think, to get them there. But then they get taken in for urgent surgeries. They're in the hands of experts once they get to Perth, and their lives are saved, and it's a fantastic feeling to think that you're a part of that.
Young dad Shane McMahon works on the rail line at BHP. The R.F.D.S flew Shane to Perth with a punctured lung following a bout of pneumonia, and weeks later again with an allergic reaction to prescription drugs. But Shane is eternally grateful to the Royal Flying Doctors for helping his youngest son. Baby Lucas was just 4 hours old, struggling to breathe and desperately needed specialist care.
Without the Royal Flying Doctor Service, my son and possibly myself would not have been here today. They've been very important to me and my family.
It's mercy flights like these that have prompted BHP to be a major sponsor of the Royal Flying Doctor Service in its emergency evacuations, but also reaching out to the people who live in the Pilbara with a new initiative of R.F.D.S on the road.
It provides for those people a health service that they would otherwise never be able to access through existing services in those areas.
We have a remote area and have people out in distance. We live with the station people, they're our neighbours, and we'd like to see that everyone has an opportunity here to have the right medical facilities.
The Pilbara On The Road team visits schools.
Put it here, same as yours. You're the doctor.
Help is further away when you live in the bush. Children need to know what to do in an emergency.
This arm that's furthest away from you, just very, very gently lift it up and take it out from the body like that. Can everyone see that?
Basic first aid is essential. While it can be fun in the classroom, it's hoped the vital information clicks in during an emergency.
Fantastic.
For older students, bush rangers or orientation camps can be part of the curriculum. The Pilbara On The Road team covers bush survival in harsh terrain and explains how certain items are compulsory for safe hiking. Outback communities are quick to support the Royal Flying Doctor Service. They know how vital that link to specialist medical care can be.
After the break, we visit Limestone Station, where knowing about the latest medical advice could save a life. Did you know in 1 year, the Flying Doctor covers more than 5 million kilometres in WA? That's equivalent to 130 times around the world. 200 kilometres east of Port Hedland, there's no shops, no neighbours and definitely no medical centre. But thanks to the Royal Flying Doctor On The Road, primary health care comes to the doorstep of the Johns family. Seaton Johns used to work this station as a teenager. Now he runs the property. His 3 young children, Pippa, Darcy and Molly, love the animals and the outdoors.
Oh, they're hungry.
But there are hidden dangers on a cattle station, accidents, and it's a long way to get help. That's why the Royal Flying Doctor Service is eager to teach first aid.
And you've walked into the backyard and she's unconscious on the ground.
Seeing her oldest daughter in this demonstration brought back haunting memories for Mum Tash.
She climbed underneath the fence and fell in the pool, and I found her floating, and she wasn't breathing and she was unconscious.
The Royal Flying Doctors have doctors on call 24/7 for any emergency. Mum Tash was quickly on the phone.
I cleared her airway and I blew breath into her, and yeah, cleared her airway. I didn't think she was breathing, but she was, because I was on the phone to the medics.
The Johns family is also custodian to one of the Royal Flying Doctors' 700 medical chests distributed across WA. There's all types of drugs in the chest. Some need to be prescribed over the phone by an R.F.D.S doctor. Others include over-the-counter medicines normally bought at a pharmacy. The on-the-road team ensure everything's in date, talking through any queries the custodian may have.
When was the last time you actually used it?
It would have been last week. I got cough medicine.
Oh, great, yeah.
The drugs are numbered and colour-coded for quick access. Medical help or advice is always available, no matter what the problem.
I mean, a high fever with the kids, they're always there, and I've rung them even for high fevers, just to talk to a doctor, just to be reassured, and they reassure you. And
Tash is allergic to march flies. A severe reaction could send her into a coma. She's requested the R.F.D.S teach her family and the other workers to give injections.
But it's a little bit intimidating, so it's kind of nice just to have a practice. I've got an arm here, but probably the easiest way in an emergency situation is to give it into a leg. If you hold the skin taut and just straight in, fairly quickly if you can, and then just basically push it straight in, and then just pull it straight out. Beautiful, perfect technique.
Life under the bullnose veranda is so Australiana, but also there's plenty of adventure.
Take an experienced city slickers?
Oh, but sure, yeah.
All right, well, show me how it's done. You show me a bit of racing car action.
I don't know about that. I'll probably...
Go on, let's go.
It's muster time at Limestone Station, which can make for long, dusty days. A neighbouring cattle station 500 kilometres southwest of Limestone also has a medical chest. Roy Hill is run by brothers Ray and Murray Kennedy. Workers from a local mine site join the first aid training.
Try not to do it too tight, because if you do it too tight, it ends up with no circulation coming through here, and it could be quite a while waiting out here for help to come.
A little bit woozy. It's all right, I'll catch you.
All right, that's excellent. That's good.
And you know that the package that you delivered to them actually saved a life, or certainly improved their chances of a speedy recovery. That definitely makes it all very worthwhile.
Each station that has its own airstrip is surveyed by Phil Witt. The coordinates and a digital map of the area, including any hazards, are stored on a database at the R.F.D.S in case of emergency. Pilots can dial up the strip on their GPS and know what to expect. But during cyclone season, the strips are inaccessible. Jane Mays remembers the night she helped save the life of a station hand who had an allergic reaction to a spider bite.
We were flooded in, so we couldn't drive out, we couldn't fly, we couldn't have flights in or out. And so I rang the flying doctor, said, what do I do? They calmed me down, and for the next 18 hours, they were on the phone available every 20 minutes while I sat with this boy and got him through.
Jane works on the station. In her spare time, she makes clothes from the back room of the homestead. Inspired by a 17-year-old named Jake, the label is the Camel Man. Country wear that's light, fashionable, and in some cases waterproof. It's already winning international acclaim.
The fabric's from Australia and it's made in Australia. It's comfortable, it's warm.
And the younger Camel still loves a bottle of milk.
Sorry.
Newman Airport on standby. An R.F.D.S doctor has finished 3 days at a remote Aboriginal community and is bringing in a patient for treatment.
Other leg. Good girl. Wonderful, Maggie.
we're going to get you to the hospital, darling.
Blood tests are flown in and need analysis.
Could you take this to the path centre, please? We have lots of specimens that we've just got from the last few days. It's just right over there at the hospital.
No problem.
Thanks.
Dr Susan Downs has medical practices in Perth, but once a month she takes part in the Rural Women's GP program, sponsored by the Royal Flying Doctor and the federal government.
You know, I work with an Islamic group on Christmas and Cocos Island, and that's very women's business things as well. But I think the Australian Aboriginal women are equally as entrenched in that tradition.
25 female doctors are part of the program. After 5 years, Dr Downs has earned the respect of the Aboriginal community, in particular the women.
Because when I first went, they were out hunting or something, and, you know, to try and find them was a problem, and then they'd be very, very shy. Whereas now, the nurses say, Susan's coming, and they're there, they're knocking on the door.
Dr Downs also sees patients in Newman.
Thanks. Same room? Same room. Lovely. Thanks.
And women book well in advance to get an appointment.
They all value the local doctors greatly, but often women don't want to be examined by somebody that they're going to play golf with or see in the supermarket or walking down the street in small communities where you can't sort of escape into the population.
At the other end of Newman, Cindy Whitby screens Aborigines to detect blindness caused by poor diet and lack of nutrients.
And I'm looking for diabetes and blood shots in the back of the eye.
This service travels to isolated communities, funded by BHP and the Lion's Eye Institute. Cindy says screening has already saved the sight of dozens of Aborigines.
So if somebody is already blind and you give them laser treatment, will it restore their sight?
Yes, it will.
Cindy's son works for BHP Billiton Iron Ore. He was inducted under the Aboriginal Recruitment Program. Every year, 15 recruits get what they describe as the chance of a lifetime.
Certainly we see this as an opportunity to certainly develop Indigenous people, give them on-the-job skills training.
Dozens of applications came in from as far away as Queensland.
I've always wanted to get into mining, but never really had the opportunity. And yeah, the opportunity's presented itself and I've taken it.
BHP offered me an Indigenous cadetship, and that involved studying my human resources degree in Darwin, and every uni holidays returning to work in Port Hedland on site for just the vacation work. Once I've completed my degree, they offered me a full-time position here in Newman, so they've done a lot.
The 1st of February, I jumped straight into a second-year apprentice, so my first 12 months as a trainee, and then I straight into a second year. So that's good.
After the break, Amanda takes a wander through the ancient gorges of Karajini. Did you know the medical chest dates back to the late 1920s? Bottles of medicine were numbered and distributed throughout our outback.
Sylvania Station is owned by BHP and leased back to the family who's lived here for generations. Ben Newland is one of the few pastoralists who stayed on the land, integrating new mustering techniques with the ones he grew up with.
No, we're as modern as you can get. We've even got a helicopter now, but it's just that I use a combination. I still use the horses as well, you know.
Inexperienced families from WA's southwest are taking up the challenge of life on the land during muster.
It's hot and it's dusty and you travel a long way, but it's good fun.
But first time on a cattle station, so it's great to know about cows and what to do and how to bring them up, and yeah, it's a hoot.
BHP Billiton has its own emergency team that ensures everyone is safety conscious.
We've got no response from him, so we know that he's unconscious. So we have to make sure we put him into the recovery position. We simply take it. Okay, and now we've got a good response.
The Royal Flying Doctor on the road team can give instruction, but practice makes perfect.
Turning, looking at the chest, 1, 1, 1.
One of the key objectives is for people to be confident in a medical crisis. The R.F.D.S not only teaches CPR to beginners, regular visits are made to the Oski Roadhouse. Hundreds of kilometres from anywhere, still Oski has an enormous amount of traffic. It's a place to fill up, grab a bite, even bed down for the night. So where have you come from?
I left Perth yesterday morning and it's oversized load, so we get to sleep at night.
Staff at this roadhouse can deal with anything, from snake bites to serious car crashes.
10 seconds. No return of pulse or breathing. Continue with CPR. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Each year, more than 100,000 tourists discover the wonder of Karijini National Park. During school holidays, the R.F.D.S on the road team is in the park, alerting visitors of possible dangers.
It's important not to wash the bite. It's important not to cut it or try and suck the venom. The transmission of the venom is through the lymphatic system in the body, not necessarily through the blood system. So we talk about things like injury prevention, safety in the bush, basic first aid.
Just in here, you just got a nice first aid kit, everything you need. Treating snake bites, sprains, cuts.
Main problem far and away is falls, sprains and fractures.
What is it, a broomstick? It's a broomstick with a rubber stopper on the bottom, and it's saved me so many times from falling over. So
don't expect that it's a moderate or mild nature trail. This is very rugged country.
It looks like you're having a good time. You've got the barbie going, you've got the beer in the hand.
What a better way to have a holiday.
I didn't go down the handrail pool. I thought that was a bit too scary.
That was a bit tricky, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I slipped at the top of that too.
A Wayward tour group made news, missing for 24 hours. It was a long, cold night.
The group of 16 became separated after one man was injured and turned back with 4 helpers. The others became stranded as night fell.
But do the right thing, and it's an experience you'll never forget. These gorges are 340 million years old, and their wonder is certainly worth experiencing.
It's a special spot down there. It's nice.
Park Ranger Paul Udinga knows how unpredictable this country can be.
The flash flood that came through and took Jim Regan's life washed me down the gorge as well. I was just a little bit luckier than he was.
Jim Regan was the state's first SES volunteer to die in the line of duty. The duo was rescuing a hiker who'd fallen. The woman made a full recovery.
The pool where he lost his life has been named after him now. It's named Regan's Pool. The place is very rugged. You can see with the cliffs here, it's all loose, and so that can be loose underfoot. So we get a lot of strains and sprains and that sort of thing.
They might declare a mercy flight, they call it, and they'll land with just car lights lighting up the runway, and they'll get cars to come and go on an angle and at the end of the strip, and that'll light up the whole runway.
State Emergency Service volunteers are called up if there's a need for search and rescue. The on-the-road team meet with the community volunteers to ensure rescues run smoothly.
Come around the back of the plane and then park your vehicle alongside the wing there.
While in town, the on-the-road team visits the local ambulance headquarters.
And then we'll just lift him up a little bit so we can slide that under.
1, 2, and 3.
It's also an opportunity to smooth out any obstacles that may delay a patient transfer.
We're coming back down in a couple of weeks, so I'll bring down that stuff on the neonate cot and show you exactly how they fit on, which will probably be good, and I'll find out about that.
It shows the importance of us
communicating
getting together.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
In just a moment, more on Karijini. We take a look at the modern-day School of the Air. Did you know the first Australian medevac was in a Qantas mail plane? Now WA's Flying Doctor evacuates thousands of patients each year.
Karijini means the Hemsley Ranges. We say in our language, when this country was soft, Nyulungamu is soft, then the toro, the snake, formed this landscape.
Karijini is the home of Dreamtime stories. Visitors are asked to show respect by not being loud and are invited to learn more inside the Aboriginal Cultural Centre. Designed in the shape of a goanna, the building is unique and has won state and national awards.
Yeah, this is just a geology part of the audio.
Fantastic. Artefacts have been donated and life stories documented. 3 Aboriginal communities still live in remote areas of the Hamersley Range. Maitland's family is very much part of the park's history.
Yeah, that's me. That's my mum. That's one of my sisters. And another sister here. And the old ladies are my aunties there. A family connection here in this park.
Family portrait, really.
It sure is, yes.
When the Royal Flying Doctor Service is at the park, they enjoy the hospitality of the rangers. Spaghetti bolognese never tasted so good. The beer-soaked damper cooked to perfection.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
Ben Udinger, son of Ranger Paul, opted for some Cocky's Joy. That's bush talk for maple syrup.
Pretty good.
Sister Elise taste tested my camp-fired chocolate bananas, although they were still a little hot. Ben and Elise live in the park. School is via satellite with School of the Air. Pilbara pioneer Peter Miller helped initiate the concept.
Just a mere about 10 years old, I got sent down to college and only saw my parents once a year then when you came back, and they were strangers to me. So I was determined, and with several others, that this wouldn't happen to our families.
With the cooperation of the Royal Flying Doctor, it began with the pedal radio, then CB. Now, lessons are computer generated.
They might even sign one of my workbooks.
The kids can send notes in the email chat room and surf the net together.
You can also go on the internet with other people and look at the sites and things. And you can chat on the weekends if you wanted to with your friends.
In the early years of schooling, parents still play a major role.
pH.
And pH, and what sound does pH make? A fit sound, so you've got to find a fit sound.
Elise is very good at art and has a fetish for frogs.
Picasso has actually landed in the jelly bean jar, and he's turned all sorts of different colours.
Yes, too.
School of the Air also has camps, so the kids can meet their teachers.
McClay comes in again, and it's a good shot.
The 2005 Legends match is an initiative of BHP Billiton Iron Ore's Community Partnership Program. Big cricket names coming out of retirement for one last game.
Not bad. Craig, did you hear the noise? There's my cartilage crunching.
I think the tactics will be to survive. I'll better go.
How's it feel, mate? Oh, the hemis. Oh.
The WA Warriors regularly travel north, helping young cricketers with their technique.
Chicken black! Chicken red!
I suppose at the end of the day they go home with their autograph and they sort of say, oh, I met Brad Hogg today or something like that, and you know, that's a lasting impression.
Being a bloke from the bush who's played cricket and you know, being able to play for Australia and had that opportunity, I think it's just fantastic that we can actually give something back to the rural communities.
The junior clinics and the cricketers' flights to the Pilbara, sponsored by BHP Billiton.
Because you're learning about new skills, learning new things, telling you what's right, telling you what's wrong.
It's fabulous. Yeah, just to see some little kids just achieving some of the little basics and the thrill they get out of just that little achievement. One little girl who screamed out to her dad, "Look at me, Dad," when she hit the ball for the first time.
So have you seen any talent out here today?
I have. Well, there's some really good kids actually, and a couple of the girls were really good just quietly.
We've got to attract and retain people in the Pilbara. We want to work and live in these communities, and the facilities, health, education are all part of attracting people to this community.
We couldn't have the community we have without BHP.
The Pilbara is booming. BHP Billiton continues to expand and needs more families to be attracted to life in the northwest.
We can see we'll have $100 million to commit with the communities in partnership over the next 10 years.
So what do kids know about the Royal Flying Doctor Service?
Doctor service that flies to help people with emergencies and stuff.
They get $1 for every Demison syrup bottle sold.
Oh, the guy who made us on the $20 note. Very nice people to do that.
To help other people?
Yeah.
Did you know the Flying Doctor's founder, John Flynn, said, if you start with an idea, nothing can stop it. The Royal Flying Doctors must raise $6 million each financial year to remain in the air. State and federal funding makes up about 85% of the budget, but the service relies heavily on the corporate dollar. Planes and vital medical equipment is purchased by donations. The Royal Flying Doctor wants to do more in our outback, but is restricted by a lack of funding. The Pilbara on the Road project began as an idea. Now it's making a difference to those living in our remote outback. This unique service would not have been possible without the ongoing financial support of BHP Billiton Iron Ore, a mining giant giving back to its local community.
It's probably the best thing that happened in the Pilbara since the horse and cart.
The On the Road team is following the work of R.F.D.S founder John Flynn, visiting families on remote stations, teaching first aid to mine workers, educating school children and reaching out to those who may need medical help. The Royal Flying Doctor Service hopes this vital service continues and grows. That's our program. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed being on the road with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. They really do a fantastic job, whether it's in an emergency situation or delivering primary health care to the outback. If you get the opportunity, please support them. Bye for now.